there, welcome back. I'm going to talk today about Django Unchained, the Tarantino film that won the Oscar for Best Screenplay, and I have no clue why. Right, this is probably my least favourite Tarantino film, like, easily. I mean, I've got a kind of love-hate thing with Tarantino. It's like, there's a lot of stuff he's made I really like. Like, I adore Jackie Brown. I really like Pulp Fiction. Reservoir Dogs is a very good debut. I like the two Kill Bills. I've got a soft spot for Grindhouse. I've liked his last two films. It's just in the... I do think he's an immature director, and I do think he's not as good as he thinks he is, or his fans think he is. I view him as a kind of middle ground, middle level director and writer, not a top level, you know. Like, I don't rate him the way I'd rate a Howard Hawks, you know, or a David Cronenberg, or a Sakamoto or something. I just don't rate him in that level. Or especially something like really greatly Benoit or Kubrick or Ozu. He's not on that level. The two films that really kind of sunk him for me really badly was like the last 30 minutes of Glorious Bastards and this film. Because this film, I think, is him at his most self-indulgent and his most childish. And it's more annoying that there was a good idea here and he didn't deliver. And he used Django as well as a character and didn't deliver Django. Because Django, played by Franco Nero, is a cynical character. It's basically a rip-off of The Man with No Name. And he's really cynical, and basically Django is a very cynical remake of Fistful of Dollars, and it's brutal. It's set in the mud. Well, this film has some scenes set in the mud, but not the whole film. Like in Fistful of Dollars, he does get beaten up horribly, but he does put his coffins full of guns and stuff as well, which he uses to murder people and things. It's a very cynical film. Directed by Sergio Corbucci, who also directed The Great Silence, which is a masterpiece. And because Tarantino used the theme Django and name-checked it repeatedly, this is my version of Django, it makes it worse for me, because it's like, it's not. It's just not. You've done something else, you're just giving it a different name. Then it may have been more forgiving, because you're taking Django and saying this is a new version of Django, and you actually try to replace Django, which is an iconic Italian character, with this trash. You know, which I think's offensive. As a fan of Italian spaghetti westerns, I'm like, nah. See what would have happened if he'd called it The Man with No Name. See what happened to the fans then. Instead he took the other iconic character, say it's Django, because no one's seen Django, or few people have. And it took away all the political stuff. Replaced with something else, but he replaced with something he actually messed up, so that's makes it worse. So Django is Jamie Foxx. Now, what's been more disappointing here is Jamie Foxx could be a really good Django. He's got the look. He's got the kind of cold dead eyes in certain scenes. He could be a good Django. You could do a Django film about race, a really good one, but you'd have to be really committed. And this film's not committed. This film wants the silly jokes. It's not committed to nihilism. It's not committed to brutality. Instead, it's that Django trying to rescue his wife. In a Django film, his wife should be dead before the credits start. And it should be the trauma of surviving without her. It should not be trying to rescue her. That's first of all, that makes it... Why is it a Django film then? Because he likes the name. So there's that, but especially annoying, Jamie Foxx does have a lot of charisma, and he can nail the kind of cold-eyed killer stuff. But he's not given a chance to be Django for much of the film, really, because he's a supporting part for most of it. It's about him learning to become Django. It's like an origin story type of thing, but it's still unsatisfying at that level, because the motivation does feel like it and the thing they're name checking are so far apart. It's like, it's disingenuous to actually link them. It should have been a character that wasn't Django. It should have been a new character, and don't name check Django, because it's, if they actually just had the mutts of mud and did his own thing, it would have been fine. You'd have got the references. He's a fan of kombucha, fine. But really, that's the kind of, that's the basic film fan thing of me saying this is the first thing I had against the film. But it's not the only thing. That's really not the only thing. For a start, this is a 2-hour, 40-minute film that should have lost an hour. Easily lost an hour. It goes on forever. It just goes on forever. And it has so many plot holes in it. But most of all, it has so many like lapses in good taste. And not in a... I mean, a filmmaker like Paul Verhoeven is very good at twisting you and twisting taste and using humour or violence to make you really disturbed. That's what Paul Verhoeven can do. Tarantino can do it sometime. This film, he just goes fully into bad taste. Like he's trying to compete with John Waters while doing a film about slavery. It's like, this is not good. This is just really not a good thing. Because he's playing stuff out as if, for starts, he's got good DP, Robert Richardson, and then he shoots the film as if it's a TV show. And the framing, he uses a widescreen, but the framing is very basic, and it feels like it's paced and shot as if it's a TV show, but with a widescreen, which is like weird. Like whenever you've got voiceovers or montages, it just feels like the opening credits of a TV show from the 60s. Very weird. And Tarantino continued that stuff on Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where it was about filming of these TV shows and things, and it's like, are you really just making films about stuff you liked as a kid? Is that the only level you've got when it comes to this? Why are you doing a Western that's anti-cinematic? So that's another picky thing I've got about it. Also, the use of the N-word in this one is gratuitous. I mean, I remember when this film came out, Spike Lee was really anti it, even before he never even watched it, because he knew what Tarantino was, and he knew where it was going. He'd heard all about the excessive use of that word. Honestly, I think he's got a point, because I watched it and I was like, oh, this feels like a teenager learning to swear. This does not feel like well-context use of racial language to show the characters are racist. This feels like a child who's learned to swear, seen all the offensive stuff he can, and saying, it's a joke. It's like, it's the same thing again. And you're always meant to be shocked that a racist character will be racist. And it's like, no, you're just using this now to, you're not creating a mood of despair. You're trying to use this for comedy. And it's just tasteless. And it actually goes against building suspense. Because he's trying to do this thing for comic value all the time. He's trying to make it funny all the time. And it basically means whenever you're setting up a situation where there's meant to be dread and there's no dread, like, ever. So the film starts off Django being a slave, and he gets freed by Christopher Waltz's character, who's this German bounty hunter who's looking for these three guys, and he needs Django to help him because Django can identify him. So while he gets Django released, and he ends up killed by the bounty hunters, but Django is now free if he helps him get this guy. So Django helps him, and there's another sequence in a much plot time where he shows you how the Chris Waltz character operates as a bounty hunter. All of which is fun. You could have done a whole movie with that, and it would have been a better movie than what we get. Because him teaching Django how to be a bounty hunter would have been really interesting. Just this idea about this black guy in a racist country being a bounty hunter. That could have been much more disturbing than what you get. Instead, you get a couple of moments of interest, but basically you go to this big ranch ruled by Big Daddy, played by Don Johnson, all these racist characters, and they're all using the N-word as if to say how funny this is, how racist they are. But it is like a comedy, a sitcom level writing. I'm amazed this won an Oscar because it's like some of the writing in this is atrocious. It's just sitcom level, so much of it. It's some of his worst writing. And I'm watching just cringing at some of this stuff because it's like, wow, this is bad. And there's a whole thing where they're putting the hoods on, pre-Ku Klux Klan stuff, but basically try to be Ku Klux Klan, try to run them down at a certain point, and they turn their tides on them. But it's so broad and it takes so long to get to the point. It's like, why the hell am I watching this? You've actually set up a situation that's interesting, and you've actually just blown it by having comedy asides. Then you have a couple of bits where they make money, and they're going to go get Django's wife, and they have this big idea that they're going to try and con the owners of the plantation where she is, and to sell them to her because they think if they go there and actually say we want to buy this, they might not be interested. They might just say no just to annoy them. So they're going to do this other thing, this con, and it's almost like they're going to buy her as if she's a side buy, and then they'll back out to the main deal. So there's this whole con going on where Django has to act as if he's a slave trader, a free man but a slave trader, a traitor to his people type of thing, and dealing with all these races. So this almost feels like episode 2 of a TV show. Django going undercover. That's why this whole film feels like a TV show. With the same sort of level of morality. It's like anything for a cheap joke or anything for a got ya, shoot 'em out. Because they stop the film every so often for these like stylized shoot 'em outs where Django shoots people or whips them. But he's always wearing ridiculous clothes. The shots are just there for effect to see, oh how cool this is, like a dream thing, like, oh look how he's turning the tails on these slave traders. And it's like, this is just childish stuff. This is it's not realism. But even for if they're going to do it as a thriller and oh this would be really tense, I'm actually doing that, let's have a play for that. So the tension's always taken away because they're trying to play as if it's a sitcom a lot of the time. It's just terrible, some of this stuff. I was cringing watching some of this film. I was like, wow, he really this is bad. So they go to this slave trade place and end up meeting Leonardo DiCaprio as the owner of Candyland. He's a big villain. He's the owner of this big estate full of slaves. And DiCaprio's fine. He's hamming it up. He's having a lot more fun than he did in Gang of New York. He's a lot better in this one. And he's fine. I mean, he's fine. Jamie Foxx is fine. Christopher Waltz is fine. The supporting actors like James Remar and Walton Goggins are fine. All the actors are doing their jobs. But it's just played repeatedly for laughs. And they go into this thing, they're doing this con. Instead of actually making it tense, they're going into a slave trade under false pretenses. And this could be really scary. They're playing it for laughs, and then suddenly you have a moment of, oh, here's a point where some slave's getting ripped apart limb from limb by these dogs. And the juxtaposition is just weird. Because you know there's no real point, because Tarantino's in there for the jokes. He's not in there to really terrify you about how horrible slavery is, because slavery is horrible. And if he'd played this one film straight, it would have been much more effective. All these jokes are just irritating. All these like terrible use of the N-word are just irritating. And the film just keeps on going on with this. They're doing this sequence where she now knows, the wife now knows that they're here to help her. They try to play this con, it goes wrong. And even during these scenes, I remember seeing this and thinking, why am I so bored? I should be tense here. And I was watching again for this video, and it was like the same thing. It's like, I should be feeling some sort of tension here, and there's just nothing here. It's just bland jokes, and I'm just feeling like nothing from this. And it's basically time to doing jokes on, slave movies, like old exploitation slave movies. And it's like, then making a point every so often how horrible slavery is, and it's Is this all you've got? Is this really what you've got for this? This is just bad. So there's this whole thing where they're trying to up the ante. Samuel Jackson appears as the house slave guy, the guy who runs the house for DiCaprio, and he's like, he's the most racist character in the whole film, which should be funny, because he's really says the most horrible stuff in it, and it should be disturbing, but the tone's been so comic booky till then that it's just not. It's just like, oh god, what is this garbage? We get to the point, because we're now like hour and a half in, and we've had the first hour going at some pace, but they keep on stopping for jokes. And this second section is just goes on forever. Is it meant to do the big suspense stuff? And you're wishing, couldn't they have just given this idea to Roman Polanski and let him do it? Let him do the suspense. You know, Tarantino's trying to be Paul Verhoeven with this film. He's trying to be Brian De Palma, trying to be ironic about the genres and ironic about what's going on, and then catch with the horror every so often. And it's just not working. It's just misplaced gags all the time, and it's just like the character work is weird because Django becomes a non-entity. Ultimately, he's just as you get to know the character, because he's undercover, and it's like you're not really getting a character here. You're just getting this guy who's going through these scenes, and everyone else is more identifiable than him, which is annoying because whenever Jamie Foxx does something very Django-ish, it feels much more interesting. But he's not really given the range to do it a lot of the time. I'm starting to think this film got the Oscars and got the nominations because it was dealing with slavery, and that was it. And it was like, well, it was, some of us liked it, so they might as well nominate for some stuff, because it's just, it feels it was nominated just for the sake of, oh, it dealt with an important subject, but it dealt with it badly. It dealt with an exploitation way, in a way that didn't really make you feel you'd learn anything about slavery you couldn't learn from a documentary. And they're inventing all this stuff in the film, you know, they're just showing you all these things that came from other films, basically. It doesn't feel that researched. It feels built up from series of westerns he's watched. Because it's shot that way. It's shot like it's a TV show that was based on older westerns, the John Ford western or something. It doesn't feel like it's fresh. It doesn't have that feeling of real life in the characters or real life in the interactions, which you don't need all the time. But if you're dealing with this subject, you need a sense of it, even if you're trying to play it for dark and comfortable humour, you need some sense of reality. And this film kind of just is just playing for laughs too much. And then finally you get the shootout. Everything goes wrong. Django shoots up half the house. And he doesn't get killed. He surrenders because they've got his wife, a gun to her head. DiCaprio gets killed for all the good he was doing in this film. Because, I mean, basically, at a certain point, DiCaprio, like Jamie Foxx, gets a couple of nice moments and then he gets just basically ham it up. But him and Christopher Waltz, they keep it going for a long time just by just charisma. You know, and when they're both dead, it's like, oh god, that's the characters who actually had charisma going from the film. And then the film just keeps going. Jamie Foxx's character is about to get tortured, and they say, no, we're going to send him to become a slave to his mining company. And it's like, why haven't you killed him? You killed so many of your people. Why are you not torturing and killing him? Because it's easily escape. He is sent to an easily escapable situation, which he easily escapes from, and in 2 minutes comes back and kills everybody. And that's the end. And it's the dumbest thing ever. He's just killed the guy in charge of this plantation, or his pal has, and he's killed a lot of the people around him. Why has he instantly not getting killed? It doesn't make any sense. They have this big explanation. It's like, that's gibberish. That's just you trying to make out so you have your finale, a big finale. But it makes no sense. These are racist people. A black man would have been instantly killed. They were getting killed. They were getting torn apart for actually just trying to run away by dogs tearing apart for trying to run away. This guy shot so many of them, and they're going to let him live. It's like, it makes no sense for the kind of racist people these guys are. And that's the annoying thing of the film. Everything's kind of like that. It's like, I want to do this, I want to do that, I'll find some motivations for it, but if I can't, I'll just pop characters a lot until I get out of it. I mean, the whole plot they have doesn't quite make sense as a thing, but if it was played much straighter, as if it was this the best chance they had, even though it was not the best plot, it could have been played for suspense instead of just there. It's just full of scenes that just hang there, you know. And the whole film is just Tarantino just getting off his dialogue, and the dialogue isn't that good in this one. It's just like there. So in this whole film, I just cannot stand this one. This is, for me, it's Tarantino's like worst film by like a mile. It just is annoying because it takes so many excuses to be childish while dealing with an important subject. It's got a massive budget and it spends so much of its time just shooting people because it has to be a western. Okay, do that. Be a good genre film that also has a political point, like RoboCop. But RoboCop had humour, but it did not just force it on you all the time. Like, you have to find this funny. It's like, that's part of the world. That's this character in the world. And it's a very defined character. And this one, you don't get a defined character for a very long time. And then when Django becomes defined, because that's playing parts, and then they don't stop to actually define his character as much as they should. And the character just feels like it's an actor trying his best with a part that isn't quite there. And even at the end, when he kills everybody, they end up doing these weird, it blows up the house, they end up doing these weird horse tricks at the end. And it's just him and his wife acting childish to each other. I mean, it's like, what the hell is this? This is a film about slavery and you're doing this. What the hell is this? This is like a childish... It's definitely a film made by an egotistical white guy who thinks he can take this subject and force his weird kinks on it. And it's just a disaster. It's just like one of those things. And he's trying to do this Sofia Coppola thing from Marie Antoinette of having modern music within the historical subject, which means they can then throw in Django having costumes that aren't of the era and wearing these shades and trying to be cool and trying to make an exploitation movie and all dealing with slavery and... But Marie Antoinette actually worked for that. It actually worked really nicely as there was a modern retelling of this story. I thought that worked. This one, I really feel it was a technique being used by Tarantino just to be childish. There's no depth to it. There's nothing really there. He's trying too hard to... He's a guy like... He should be mature enough to know better by this point to try and do something interesting. Instead, he's just doing the most childish thing you do in your 20s. And this subject, it just does not feel like it's integrated at all into the subject matter. It just feels he's saying, if I force a personality, I have so many fans who go with me whatever I do, they'll go with me. And he did, and it was still a kind of shamefully immature film about an important subject. It just feels like it's just an exploitation movie. It's just getting off on the pain of historical fact to do its little shoot 'em ups. And you can do genre films with historical fact and show this is something horrible, this is a way to tell people about this subject. But don't be so smug about it. Don't be so above everything and belittle everything and use the N-word so many times just as silly sitcom jokes. That's just really nasty and mean. And I have a feeling if this film's released now, it would get in a lot of trouble. And I'm amazed that it hasn't been brought up. It's like, well, this film is kind of dodgy. It does feel like it's, in retrospect, it's a really weak film. I always thought it was a weak film. I always just thought, what's he doing? This is bad. Which is weird because I liked his follow-up western, Hateful Eight, which I thought covered the idea of bounty hunters and the slave history and things like that much stronger because it treated it as a part of a genre film, part of a story. In this one, it felt much more like exploitation, trying to have a lead character who is, okay, we're against slavery, so we'll make the lead character black, and we'll have them shoot all these racist buggers, and that's our defence, so we can get away with all this horrible racist language. And it doesn't really work. It just feels like you're not really getting into the subject, not into the damage caused by this institution. It just feels like you're getting off on the suffering to do your little revenge story. It feels disingenuous, and it's always been one that film of Tarantino's is like, that's kind of shameful one. That's like, we should not have done that one. That was dodgy as hell. So yeah, I cannot stand Django Unchained. I just don't like it for many reasons, but hopefully this explains some of them. But this film, I cannot get behind. It just feels tacky as hell. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you later. Bye for now.